Hello and good afternoon, and thank you for joining me at this webinar and for wanting to learn more about the ECM Bootcamp. Before I start off, just a little bit of practicalities. If you have some questions, there is a conversation tab on your right where you can raise any question that you might have. And you can do that all the way through the session, but at the end we'll have a specific Q&A session where we'll go through the questions that you might have. So what I would like to go through today is first, I want to elaborate a little bit more about why does it actually matter to do enterprise change management. And why is it a good idea to invest in tools and knowledge on how to drive it? Then I'll give you an insight into the content and agenda of the bootcamp and what the typical profiles that attend the bootcamp. And then finally, some information about when we have the next bootcamps and the question and answer session that I talked about. But before we jump into it, what is enterprise change management actually? And a helpful analogy that I think some of you might have seen if you've been to one of our certification courses is to see the difference between change management and enterprise change management of the difference between building a neighborhood and building a house. But when we are building the neighborhood, we design the streets, the flow of traffic, speed limits and speed bumps, parks for where people to play, sidewalks and waiting paths on how to provide utilities for each house, such as gas, electricity and water. And then having done all that work, we can actually stand up each house or each project much more quickly and provide the people living in the house with everything they need efficiently, which means in the end that we can actually set up more houses more quickly and with standards. And what does this mean in ECM? In ECM, it means it might include having a change management office, a community of practice, budget allocated to change management, a common language like ADKAR, standard change management deliverables, buy-in at the sponsor level, and maybe it's even a portfolio view of the people side of change. So when we define it, then change management is the application of processes and tools and manage the people side of change from the current to the future state in a specific project, whereas enterprise change management is the effort to institutionalize the change management practices and processes and capabilities and competences within the organization, embedded in the organization. And just as a conclusion, very often I see that many organizations, they just build more houses, but it does not necessarily increase the level of change competency in the company. More is needed. So why is change management important? What I hear and what I experience as a change manager in many different organizations is right now that changes are getting bigger and there are more of them at the same time. And the demand from executives is that we do it faster and faster and faster, but they are also becoming more complex, more cross-functional, and many of them are driven by digitalization. And some just use the term, it's a VUCA world, which I think is actually a pretty good way to put it. And then why is ECM then a good way to respond to this VUCA world? Well, if we look at it, then in a survey from PricewaterhouseCoopers, it says 76% of the CEOs said that their ability to adapt to change will be a key source of competitive advantage. And in a study from McKinsey, 9 out of 10 executives says that organizational agility was critical to business success and growing the importance over time. It reduces the saturation and its costs. In a survey by Prosci, 78% of the respondents said that organizations were nearing or past the point of saturation. And that's really also one of the things that I experience right now, is that even though you have great resources on the change management project, then because the organizations is nearing a point of saturation, that is what actually makes the projects less successful. Then an ECM capability supports strategy execution, and by default, strategy is change. And the capability also gives a competitive advantage where you can actually outchange the advantage, the competition. And I think also when we talk about the digitalization in many of the industries, this is actually the game: who can actually become more digital, giving better customer service at a lower cost at the biggest pace. And then finally, there are the multiples of benefits of change management, which you can put like this: well, change management on one project is good, but having change management on all your projects is definitely better. And then finally, is it worth it? And studies show that there is a clear correlation between change management, maturity, and the project rate. And enterprise change management is actually the strategy that you can use in order to drive your change management maturity. And it's also the change management maturity ambition that drives the enterprise change management strategy. And that is what the bootcamp is all about. We start out with finding out where your organization is today in terms of maturity. Then we go and look at the ambition for maturity, and then we use the ECM tools and this to design the strategy to get there. And in the bootcamp, it looks like this. And that is also the visual outline of the day. But let's look up a little bit on the first bit, the current state. What is the level of the maturity today? And here we actually use an assessment tool where we can go in and assess the current level of your organization. So how mature is your organization today? Having done that, we jump to the future state. And there we use the same tool, which is the assessment, to do assessment of where you want to go. And we also do an exercise called Standing in the Future that actually helps us set up some clear objectives, goals, and metrics for the desired future state. And having done that, we're actually ready to design our enterprise change management strategy. And doing that, we have the 5 levers that you see in the pentagon in order to get there. And during the boot camp, we'll work with each of them. The first one is leadership, which is about sponsors, steering committee, change management reviews. And there we'll take some critical decisions on, so what should be the size and scope and speed of the enterprise change management journey? And could we get some kind of a commitment statement from the leadership in order to do that? Then there is a lever project, and project is about what should be the pilots within projects, what regions, what triggers it. And some of the critical decisions we need to take here is what would be some of the critical, the projects that could demonstrate that it actually makes a difference doing change management on projects. And also find out, do we actually have the resources to make that happen? And skills is all about who needs to know what, and what would be the training and coaching and tools needed for that. And the critical decisions that we take in this level is to say, okay, what should be our development approach to actually do this? What would be the initial training plan? And then there's structure. Structure is all about the organizational footprint of change management in the organization. Should there be a CMO? What would be the networks? How do we describe change management in job roles? And some of the critical decisions that we take here is, does it make sense to have a centralized office, or should it be decentralized? What should be the different roles and responsibilities within change management throughout the organization? And then finally, there is process. What processes should change management be integrated in? How should it be integrated into project management? How should it be integrated into our gating processes, into agile? So all the processes that are related to change management, how do we actually integrate it into that? And if you look at that, then the program agenda for the day looks like this. In the morning, we start out with discussing a little bit more than I just did about the what and why of enterprise change management. Then I'll introduce you the change management maturity model audit. And then we look at ECM as a project, because we need to put it up as a project that we can actually drive in order to reach our goal. And then finally assess our current state. In the afternoon, we define the future state, and then we design our transition state, develop our ECM strategy map, and then determine next steps. And to help you to do that, there are some course materials. There is an ECM Bootcamp workbook, and there's also a really good ECM roadmap outline toolkit that you can use to actually build your roadmap in detail. And then moreover, you'll get 1 year subscription of the change management maturity audit tool. So that's what will be happening exactly on the day. And having done that, we target for these 5 key outcomes. So first of all, that you learn how organizational change agility leads to competitive advantage, that you get to assess your current level of change management across the 5 capability areas, and also get to define a future state vision for your change capability. And then what you create and what you'll walk away with is actually an enterprise change management strategy map for your specific change. And then we'll also lightly touch upon, so okay, one thing is making enterprise change management into a project, but how do we also consider the people side of change in actually doing this? Who should attend? On this slide, you can see some of the roles that people attending the boot camp is normally in. And I would say that if you are in a position in your organization where you can influence change management strategy in any way, and you want to do it, this is definitely relevant. It can be if you are heading a newly started change management office, or if you want to establish a change management office. This gives you some tools both to make the case for why is it important, but certainly also to make a strategy for how to get there. And then if you think this is relevant for you and interesting, then we have two ECM boot camps planned. One here already on March 21st, or a little bit later. We'll have one in June. It's going to take place central Brussels at the hotel. There is you can be 6 to 15 participants, so that shouldn't be a big group. Yeah, and you can register on Nexum EU. And then finally, I'm curious to see if there is any questions.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you for attending this webinar. Yes, we get some questions from the participants. Do not hesitate if you have any further question. We'll answer them in a moment. So the first question, Caroline, is it a good idea to attend together with a colleague from the same organization?
Yes, I've seen people do that, and I think actually that adds to the boot camp, because then you're not sitting with all the decisions and thoughts for yourself, because the session has a lot of breakout sessions where you actually work on your strategy, and there it's really good to have someone else to discuss the strategy with. So I highly recommend that, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Another question is regarding the content. What do you think is the most valuable part of the ECM Bootcamp?
For me, there are, I think, two things that is valuable. One is giving some hints and ideas for how to actually position enterprise change management within the organization, because you also need to be able to sell that in order to be able to work with it. That's the first thing. And then the other thing that I really enjoy is the strategy map itself, using the 5 levers to build your strategy and see actually how many opportunities there is to increase maturity without making a big push. It's really worthwhile.
Okay, thank you. We have another question here. How much emphasis will there be on practical case, so real life case, on applying the tools, so it's not just a theoretical bootcamp?
Great questions. So this is a boot camp. It's a Prosci boot camp. So of course there is a lot of things that we need to go through, but I have some examples from real life setting up a change management office. I have some real examples of how can you do portfolio change management. So I tried to the largest extent to build in personal experiences on how you can actually do it. And moreover, it's also getting practical, because we're having all these breakout sessions where you work on your own case, and where I and colleagues from Nexum will also be there to discuss subject matter with you. Okay, so very practical. I have another question here. Will you share the slides of the webinar afterwards? So the answer is, I will take the answer, Caroline. So the answer is yes. You will be able to download the slides and to review this webinar, because it has been recorded on our website in the resources section on the website. For the moment, we do not have any further questions. So if you need anything, or if you want further information, do not hesitate to contact Caroline or myself. So here you have the contact information of Caroline. And for the rest, we wish you a very good day, and hope to see you soon to one of the webinar. To an ECM session, sorry, or to another webinar. Have a good day, and bye-bye.